This is Linda Hofshire with the Embedding Evaluation in Libraries project, and this video discusses using focus groups to gather data when conducting an evaluation in your library. A focus group is an interview conducted with a group of participants, usually 6 to 8 people. The evaluator poses questions to the group, but rather than answering individually, the idea is for the participants to engage in conversation among themselves. In some ways, focus groups are very similar to individual interviews because we can gather similar types of information about respondents' experiences and perspectives, and we conduct them through a conversation. Therefore, conducting focus groups requires a strong foundation of skills and experience conducting interviews. To learn more about conducting individual interviews, you can view the interviews video in this series. Although focus groups are a type of interview, they are actually quite different than individual interviews because focus groups are a social experience among the participants. Focus groups were developed in the field of marketing to reflect the social interactions that are part of people's decision-making. This is true in life more broadly. People develop their opinions and perspectives and make sense of their lives through conversation with other people. Focus groups are used when it's important to leverage that social interaction. Evaluators use focus groups when we want participants to build off of one another's ideas and reflect on their own experiences and opinions in light of what others say. For example, a library might use focus groups when conducting a community needs assessment because the library wants community members to have a dialogue about community issues and needs. Evaluators might also choose to use a focus group when gathering data from a population that feels more comfortable in a group setting or exploring an issue that is more comfortable to discuss as part of a group. For example, a library might conduct focus groups when gathering data from teens because they would feel more comfortable in a setting with their peers rather than one-on-one with an interviewer. Sometimes, libraries lean towards conducting a focus group in place of individual interviews to save resources, to cut down on either the cost or the amount of time involved. But that is a misunderstanding of how to use focus groups. The library will not get the same kind of data from a focus group that it would from individual interviews. Instead, libraries should use focus groups when they are in need of the social context and interaction that a group interview affords. To get started with a focus group, you will need to prepare a discussion guide. This is a form of interview guide that is specific to focus groups since our goal is to facilitate a discussion among the participants. For more information about interview guides and how to use them, you can view the interview video in this series. A discussion guide begins with an introductory script that you can use to introduce yourself, explain the focus group purpose and process, and obtain informed consent from the participants. For more information about obtaining informed consent and a sample script, you can view the informed consent video in this series. When we are preparing our introductory script, we will need to pay attention to our explanation about confidentiality. We will take the same steps to protect participants' confidentiality as we do in interviews, and we will ask participants to respect the confidentiality of what was shared in the group. However, we can't guarantee that others will repeat what they hear in the focus group. In addition, it's important to always audio record focus groups. So, you will need to explain how you will use the recording, who will have access to it, and when it will be destroyed. You then need to directly ask for the participants' permission to audio record the focus group. In terms of the questions that make up the body of the discussion guide, you will ask many fewer questions than you would in an individual interview. This is because your questions will be a jumping-off point for conversation among the group. Also, your questions will need to focus on topics that people will be interested in discussing with others. You will still want to focus on participants' experiences, behaviors, opinions, and feelings, but specifically those that foster rich discussion among groups of people. There are also some types of questions that are used specifically in focus groups. First, focus groups begin with a question that each person answers individually as a way of introducing themselves to the group. For example, you might ask each person to share their name and also some information about their experience with the library program or service that you're evaluating. You can also use some question types during the focus group that incorporate an activity rather than only a verbal discussion. For example, you can ask each participant to make a list or to draw a diagram. Then they would share what they created, and those lists or drawing would serve as a jumping-off point for discussion. Or you could present a set of images or pictures and ask participants to sort them based on their experience or opinions. This can be done individually with a discussion afterward, or it can be done as a group, with all of the participants discussing the sorting process as it unfolds. Using these types of questions helps to make sure that you hear from every participant in the group and adds variety and interest to a focus group. When you use these additional types of questions, you will incorporate them into the discussion guide in a way that creates a smooth, logical flow for the conversation, in terms of the topics discussed and also in terms of the sequence and balance of activities. When it comes to conducting a focus group, your role is to pose questions that spark discussion and then guide that discussion among the group of participants. You want to create an atmosphere in which people are willing and able to share their experiences and perspectives and respect others' points of view. This means that in addition to interviewing skills, you also need group facilitation skills. You will need to draw participants into the conversation, including those who may be quiet and more reluctant to speak in a group setting, and manage those participants who tend to talk a lot and may dominate the discussion. You also need to keep the discussion on track, help the group avoid any pressure to agree with one another, and guide the group through any tensions or conflicts that arise. To do all of this, it's a good idea to have two evaluators involved when conducting focus groups. One person will serve as the moderator and lead the conversation with the participants. The second person will take detailed notes. Those will be needed to supplement the audio recording and keep track of the group's progress through the discussion guide, watching the time to make sure the focus group addresses all of the key topics. Your final step in conducting a focus group is to ensure that the recording is securely stored and to transcribe the recording for analysis. This is where you will often need to use the notes that were taken during the focus group because, as you listen to the recording, it can be difficult to determine who is speaking at any given time, and it can be difficult to unravel back and forth conversation and overlapping comments among participants. To learn more about conducting focus groups, you can consult a set of quick tips from University of Wisconsin Extension, and read the book Focus Groups, A Practical Guide for Applied Research by Richard Kruger and Mary Ann Casey. For more information about embedding evaluation in your library, visit our website at libraryeval.org.